The debut of the Kamen Rider's final form will always be one of the greatest moments in a tokusatsu season. It's when our hero finally overcomes the many troubles they have been facing throughout their journey in the season and acquire their strongest power. To convey this power surge, the designs of these final forms tend to be an all-out effort, bringing many aspects of the season aesthetic together into one single suit. Because of this, today, to celebrate 4,000 subscribers, I'm here to rank all of these primary Heisei Rider final forms from worst to best, in my opinion. It's pretty self-explanatory here. Decisions will be based mainly on visuals, but other aspects of the forms may also have an effect, but not too big of one. There's also one small thing that I would like to point out, which is the final forms in this list are only forms that appear in their respective rider's show proper. So, even if you consider Super Tatoba and Cross Build those respective riders' final forms, that's great. I won't try to take that away from you. I'm not going to try to convince you against that. They just aren't going to be considered specifically for this list. At the time of this recording, Gio Oma form has not appeared in his show, only the movie, so it's not going to be on this list even if it is the real final form for some reason. But if it does eventually get considered the final form because it does end up in the show, it ends up at the number 18 spot. Just letting you know here. Also remember that this list is based on my opinion, so please don't be angry if your favorite form isn't high up on the list, and let's just instead try to have a calm, civil discussion about it down in the comment section. If you want to talk more about Kamen Rider or just tokusatsu in general, be sure to join the channel Discord server and follow me on Twitter, and now let's jump into the list with number 24. Coming in last place is Hyper Muteki. This form is just god-awful. I hate everything about it. It's just so terrible. I don't really have to say much. So, next up is Heisei Cosmic form. Now, this form gets a lot of hate from people, and I will say it's on the bottom of this list, but I won't say it's absolutely god-awful. The shade of blue is really strange. I'm not sure what they're going for with it. And the yellow on the helmet is just really kind of out of nowhere. It doesn't really fit in. But I will say the general design of this does look pretty cool. It's just color choices and the decision to put all the Astro Switch's designs on the chest just makes this form feel too cluttered and doesn't really work all that well. Next up is Build Genius form. Now, when this form first came out, I absolutely hated it. It was just terrible to me. I didn't like it at all. Now, almost a year later after it's come out, I still don't really like it. Now I don't really hate it at all, but the full bottles all over this thing just really don't work for me. In some places it looks really bad, such as on the shin guards and on the toes. It just looks so out of place in some spots, especially on the wrists as well. So the full bottles don't really work here, but I think that the basic design of this does. So if some things were changed, this genius form would be much higher on the list. Next up is Decade Complete form. This form is alright. I don't hate this form. We're probably moving into forms that I think are pretty good. Complete form is really just a repaint of Decade with a new helmet piece and chest piece, and that's really why it's this low. It's very plain, very simple. I don't really quite like that. It's just there's nothing really going on, and honestly probably my favorite part is the cards going across it because it does kind of fit into the Decade aesthetic, but it does kind of feel like a bit too much, kind of like what's going on with the Genius form. Our next final form is Putotira form. Putotira looks pretty cool. The purple is a really nice hue. It's a really nice flowing thing throughout the whole suit, and it's very menacing as a final form. But the wings on this thing really kill it for me. The wings on the helmet are just kind of strange and don't feel like they fit with the rest of the suit, and the wings on the back do the exact same thing. They feel really out of place. Along with that, the weird silver works to distinguish this form from the other O's forms, but for this specific design, I think they could have gone with a different color because it just feels very plain. Next up is Phi's Blaster form. This form actually looks pretty cool in my opinion. If you didn't know, my favorite color is red, and this form has a lot of red, so I like that about it, but that's also what I don't like about it. The red is kind of overpowering, and there's not too much to go with it, and the stuff that goes with it doesn't work well. What makes the Phi suit so cool is kind of the red lines on it that stand out against the black. They tried to reverse here, and it just looks like this cheap black strip going across the suit, suit that looks like a budget cosplay, but it's the actual suit. Along with that, the driver is literally empty. There's nothing going on with that driver, and it's because Vi's blaster uses a blaster to henshin, but Kamen Rider Hibiki also doesn't use a belt, but still has a very nice looking belt design. So there's a few things with Vi's blaster that they could have done, and because they didn't do it, it's just this low. After Vi's blaster, we have Agito Shining. I quite like the red going on here. As I said, I like red, and I like the use of it on the helmet, and the yellow eyes contrast really well with the red. It's basically an inverse of the two colors on the original Agito helmet, and it's very cool, and it works to show this as a final form. I also quite like the intricate design on the chest plate. I will just say, the reason it's so low is also kind of the driver. I don't really like the driver design here. The purple in the middle really stands out for some strange reason. There's no purple on the rest of this design. They should have went with a gold like on the chest and the eyes, and it probably would have made this form flow very nicely, but I'm not sure if that would have moved it higher on the list. Our next form is Gaim Kiwami Arms. This is a lot of silver on the final form, but I think it looks very cool. I like how this uses this big shogun aspect to simulate a growth from the original samurai design of the original Gaim suit. It definitely feels like an evolution of the Gaim suit. And you can also see that in the visor having a full rainbow design that looks very nice. However, I will say that the silver that I do like also ends up being the suit's downfall, because once again, it doesn't feel like there's a lot going on here. It's just all the silver and some black lines, nothing really to break it up, and it just kind of feels very plain. Where we do have things broken up is the chest piece with all the fruit designs, which is very cool, but it also does feel a bit out of place because it's all this black and gold that isn't present on the rest of the suit design. A form that certainly isn't very plain looking is Drive Trideron. The coolest thing I will say about this final form is the actual idea of it. This is a literal combination of the rider machine and our main character, creating this very unique and very cool final form design. I really like the tire strapped onto the left shoulder to still have the tire aspect, but it's not a straight copy of the original drive suit, and it feels more like an evolution or difference to that. Further on that point, I like how we have aspects here from the original drive suit, such as the shin pads and the arm guards that we can see in a similar manner on the original drive suit, but they're a bit different here. The part that I will say is the weirdest with this suit design is the helmet. Now it looks fine, but the weirdest thing is we have these big silver dials on the forehead that are present on the original Trideron, which is why they're here, but as a helmet it doesn't look very good in my opinion, and maybe they should have left that aspect of the Trideron off the Trideron form. After Type Trideron, we have Infinity Style. This is a very cool looking form. It's very serene, if anything. The sky blue, diamond blue, I guess, is very nice, and it really flows well with the silver. That also flows very well with the wizard driver. So it all basically feels like kind of one unified suit design. It's mainly more continuations of the wizard aesthetic, with the headpiece being basically the ring and more of the cloak pieces, but I feel that as opposed to other suit designs, it works very well here, and because of this, it's pretty high up on the list. Speaking of forms that create an evolution of the original form, we have Cyclone Joker Extreme. As an evolution form, this may be the best. We have the green and black of the original Cyclone Joker, but now there's this white middle that really elevates this form. In action scenes, it has this nice rainbow reflection that's missing from other white final forms, and because of this, it gives the form this beautiful aspect to it. I also quite like the X design going through. It ties into the name, Extreme, but it also helps to separate this from the other double forms, but this form also has some W's on it, so really it does a great job of tying together all the aspects of Kamen Rider Double, but also adding in some new ones. Next up is a heavily debated final form, Climax form from Kamen Rider Den-O. This form is very asymmetrical, but that's probably one of my favorite aspects of it. Once again, we have a concept here that I think really works well. We have the faceplates of all the Imagine from Kamen Rider Den-O placed onto different spots of the suit, and it creates this kind of wonky look to the suit design, but it actually does still feel pretty balanced. It's really only the shoulder pads, if anything. But I also like how this doesn't just copy the original Den-O design. It's a brand new undersuit with the train rails going across it, a brand new chest piece, a brand new helmet, and it's very cool, and it ties into the train motif very well, especially when we get into the final attacks of this form that move those faceplates around. The second golden form of this list is Kamen Rider Blade's King form. I'm not the biggest fan of the original Blade suit, but I do really like this one. The gold is really nice and especially contrasts with the original Blade suit being silver, and I also like that we have the different undead symbols across his body, mainly on the legs and a bit on the arms, but it all looks very cool. I especially like the chest with that very ornate symbol that really looks cool and really stands out. Also on that chest you can see some dark blue, which I wish was used more throughout this because it would have made it feel more distinct, but on that chest piece it does stand out a lot more since we don't see it throughout the rest of the suit. The helmet is also a very nice evolution of the original Blade form with the little additions to the eyes. Next up, we have the second final form of Kamen Rider Den-O, Liner form. Obviously, I like this form more than Climax form, and it's because as opposed to Climax, this one feels more unified. The original Den-O suit features a lot of black. This one instead features a lot of red, but we still have a lot of black. And we also have more silver. So it's once again an evolution over the original Den-O base form, but since this one doesn't focus on the Imagine as much and more focuses on Ryutaro. If anything, it looks like a final form of the Den Liner because it actually features the same color scheme as that and even looks more like a bullet train with the little rails on the helmet. So I like all the aspects and little changes with the suit design, which is why it's at number 11. Bringing us into the top 10 is Ghost Mugen Damashi. Now, this form gets a lot of hate, and I can understand it. I actually don't quite like the form because Grateful Damashi makes much more sense as a final form, but for what we got, I actually quite like the Mugen Damashi. I will say my favorite part of this final form is maybe the whole trench coat aspect going on. Throughout Ghost, we had parka hoodies, which were just obviously hoodies. Here, we have a full trench coat going on, and it still ties this form into the Ghost aesthetic, but now feels like that step up. I really like the shoulder pads going on with the Mugen Damashi as well. And I like the infinity design going on. It very clearly advertises what its name is, and it doesn't really feel as obnoxious to me as I think it should really be. Also, one of my favorite parts might be the sparkles on it. That is a really cool touch, and it's once again something that we don't see in too many final forms. Next up is Kamen Rider Kiva Emperor form. The gold on this form is honestly just stunning. It's this bright, saturated gold that really stands out and just really looks amazing. Especially with the red then, which just really pops. Especially those intricate designs on the forearms and the shoulder pads and the head crest. It's all just really nice and it's really well tied together. And that's why it's really one of the highest final forms on this list. Ryuki Survive is Ryuki's only second form in the entire show, and it's a great form at that in my opinion. Once again, we have some red and gold going on, which is of course what I really like in these forms. The chest piece in my opinion is really cool. It looks very simple but ornate, and it really stands out, and it kind of looks like Ryuki's visor brought down. Speaking of the visor, it's pretty much the same as the normal Ryuki form, except now we have the gold outlining the top of the helmet along with the Ryuki symbol, and it helps to stand out and differentiate it from other final forms. What I will say is a little strange is the antenna. Obviously, Kamen Rider use antenna as being based off bugs, but Ryuki isn't based off a bug. So I don't know why there's that antenna here, but it's honestly like barely noticeable, so that's why I don't really bring the form down because of that little aspect. Next up is Kamen Rider Oze's Taja Dole form. Once again, we have a red form, and it really works here. I love how the metallic red stands out against the matte black. They really pop against each other, and it really makes this form look and really ornate, especially with the wing design on the helmet that works a lot better than Puto Tira in my opinion. And we have the wings going on with the shoulder pieces as well. I also appreciate how this changes the O's aesthetic just a bit, with the chest piece being one unified image as opposed to 3 images being squashed together. It just works to make this form feel very cool. However, I will say it's lower on this list than maybe you were expecting because, for one, I feel like the red eyes is too much. We maybe needed a different color for those eyes. And 2, I don't consider this a final form. It's only really on this list because if it wasn't, I would probably have 20 people in the comment section going,
Taja Dole is the real O's final form and it was in the show. Why didn't you put it on this list?
A form that I think people think for sure should be on the list is of course Kuga Ultimate form, the original final form of the entire Heisei era. And as the original final form, it certainly set the standards. The black might seem like too much, but it really doesn't because of all the gold lining. The gold really contrasts well with the black, and it really makes the suit feel very powerful. Along with that, the driver has the small change of having a gold faceplate, and it also makes it stand out and really flow together with the rest of the suit. Keeping the red eyes on the suit are also a very nice addition in my opinion. There are some versions of this form that use black eyes, and I personally don't really like it as much. The black eyes ties in too well with the rest of the black suit, and it results in you kind of losing something with that helmet. The red eyes makes it pop, tie in with the original Kuga form, and overall really completes this final form. Bringing us into the top 5 is Kabuto Hyper form. This is a very, very nicely designed form. We have a nice combination of red and silver that really shows more of the red, and it makes this form pop as opposed to using more silver, which would make it just look very dull. Like some of the other forms on this list, this looks very much like a simple evolution of the original Kabuto form, and it's very, very nice for that. I really like the simple changes to the helmet and some of the arm and shins to help connect it to the original form but still show it's a new upgraded form. I also quite like how the chest actually has the original Kabuto beetle horn, and it's this nice little reference, but it doesn't feel very heavy-handed. It's something I didn't even notice until I was making this video. Overall, I have to say this form is very simply designed, but it works so well because of that. In 4th place, we have the most recent final form, Kamen Rider Gio's Grand Form. I love Grand Form, if I'm being honest. People hate on this form a lot, and I will agree, the driver is a mess. That's maybe the worst driver design in all of Gio. But the rest of this form is, in my opinion, really cool. I love the statues on this. If anything, you have to give some love to the designers for actually putting little detailed statues all over the suit. They're all individually detailed to look just like the rider they're based off of, and it really makes this suit stand out and feel very powerful. It really feels like this finale of the Heisei era, and it's really why it's so high up on this list. The statues are just really my favorite part of this, but we also still have the gold, which just looks so great and really pops and just looks grand in my opinion. To bring us into the top 3, we have Hibiki Armed Form. This is honestly a sleeper. Like, I didn't really give Hibiki Armed Form any thought, but that's also because I don't really give Hibiki any thought. But this form really just looks fantastic in my opinion. Clearly, the red would be a main reason for why this form is so high up. We have bright red, but we also have some dark red going on as well. And they blend together very nicely, but they also contrast with each other at the same time. But there's also some gold going on in the chest plate, and it really helps to make the rest of this form pop and give it a little bit of a different aspect as opposed to just making the whole thing red, and it really makes this form stand out and is why it's one of my favorites in the top 3 of course. I also quite like the change to have a white mouth plate of sorts in the helmet, and now we have some black eyes. It helps to give the helmet a bit more of a personality than the original Hibiki suit, and I think it works very well. In 2nd place, we have what may or may not be a final form. We have Kamen Rider Oma Gio. Now, technically this is a final form here because it's the final form of an alternate future Sogo Tokiwa, so it is kind of a final form, but it's like a different final form. But nonetheless, this form is just great. Once again, a running theme with these higher up forms is the gold. It just looks fantastic. Especially the golden details on the shoulder pads and the arms. It really just looks amazing and it really stands out. But what helps with that is the gunmetal gray. It looks almost like black, but in some lightings you can see this sort of shine, so it's really not a black. And it really helps with this form, especially on the helmet. That helmet is fantastic. I love the ornate gold. The gunmetal gray has the symbol for king in Japanese to kind of show this is the King Gio. But we also have the red eyes, which not only shows that this is an evil Sogo, but the red just looks fantastic in my opinion, and it really helps to tie this whole suit design together. But coming in at 1st place, I'm not sure how many of you I may have fooled with that opening, but we have Kamen Rider Ex-Aid Hyper Muteki. I love this form so much. It may be nostalgia from Kamen Rider Ex-Aid because I love Kamen Rider Ex-Aid, but I also just love the suit design. The golden spikes all over it are just really cool. The dreadlocks are so cool. They look really great and fight scenes. It's a very different look on the normal Heisei design, and it works very well. Along with that, the gold, orange, and black combination is really nice. It creates this nice vivid design to the whole suit, but it also blends very nice with each other, and it looks very appealing. Some other interesting color choices are the pink, orange, and teal stripes on the thighs and the chest, which represents Heisei's past forms, pink for Mighty Action X and Maxima Mighty X, and the orange and teal for Mighty Brothers. So overall, I would say that the colors and the design here meshes perfectly and creates my #1 spot. I know a lot of people don't like this final form, but I personally love it. It's my favorite form in all of Kamen Rider, and it's why I've based my channel avatar off of this form. That opening, if you were a new subscriber and you may not have known, that was a total fake out. I love Hyper Muteki. So, that's my ranking of the primary Heisei Rider final forms. As you may have noticed, this was part of the 4,000 subscribers celebration, and I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for 4,000 subscribers. We actually hit 4K literally less than 2 weeks after we hit 3,000, and that's absolutely mind-blowing to me. I was literally barely getting used to seeing a 3 there instead of a 2, and now I have to get used to a 4 there, which is like, honestly, just crazy. And 4,000 is actually a decent number by TokuTuber status, if I'm being honest. So really, it's just crazy to me. You guys are always so supportive in the comment section and elsewhere, and it really makes doing YouTube videos so much more fun than it already was. So thank you. And there's not much else to say. Once again, thank you guys so much for all the support and kind words. I hope you guys are enjoying the current videos, and I hope you're going to enjoy the content that is soon to come. So I hope to see you next time. Thank you for watching.